Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in YouTube land. I am Deleted Scenes, human being American in YouTube Ronin, and I would like to welcome you to tonight's episode of Live from Sparkwood and 21. This series chronicles the cult classic David Lynch television series Twin Peaks, co-created with him and Mark Frost, and the film career of David Lynch in general. Tonight, we have already covered Eraserhead, The Elephant Man, Wild at Heart, Blue Velvet, and last week Mulholland Drive. But tonight we are going to look deeper, and each of us on the panel has their own fan theories about just exactly what the heck this movie means. So I am going to bring out the super fans who are following me on this odyssey. Age Boomer.
Hi. You know, I just have to say something. Well, Lynch was getting all the accolades for this movie. Flappy there was he was dressed as Tweety Bird on the Hollywood Walk of Fame along with the other and just getting his picture taken. That's how far his career had sunk. So I just think we should remember poor Flappy here. That's all I'm saying.
Justice for Flappy. Netters Network. Okay. Let's go, Troy Pacelli.
If you don't bring me in, you can't hear her because.
Oh.
Okay. As I was saying, I don't know what that was.
Did you hear my sob story about Flappy, Troy?
I did. Poor Flappy.
We could hear you, but couldn't say anything.
He was with the Superman on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I would like to say hello to everyone currently joining us on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. And here in the live chat, Big Al Presents, host of Films with Friends, the creator of the 10-Word Review. We have Blue Wrench channel member, the Tired Midnight Vlogger, the voice of Northern Oklahoma, Curtis Selby. Friend of the channel, FKHC 2005, sometimes known as Tim, asking if this is the Bobby Sherman tribute show. No, but I'm sure Geeky Geezers will be there to cover it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Suzanne, good to see you. Hope that you are well. JPRPH1. Thank you to Ruby Hoove for dropping a membership over on Troy's channel. Who is the lucky winner?
Thank you so much. I don't know.
Give me a second, I will tell you.
Yeah.
It is Joe Dubecki.
Joe Dubecki. Welcome back to membership.
Nice. All right. Storyman Jack is with us. My co-host on the Mystery Movie Night podcast, Wilkie's Movies and Music. All right. Ruby Hoove for $5. Enjoy the show. Not well, so going to bed. Have a good one. Oh, get well soon, Ruby Hoove.
Thank you so much. Yeah, feel better.
Flappy's a celluloid hero. King's reference. Right on. Okay. So last week we did rewatch Mulholland Drive. And I think each of us kind of has their own theory about what's going on with the film. However, Troy has taken copious notes over many years.
So, yes, I have.
I
have.
Even though we have covered this movie once before for Friday Night Last Call, Troy made it clear at that point that he hadn't gotten to all of his theories. So, well, tonight he's going to get his chance, and I've been waiting for the better part of the year to return to Mulholland Drive. So
He's been kind of curious.
I am curious, and I am going to let you take it away here.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Share
Excited.
screen. Yeah. Here we go. There we go. Okay, and let me pull up my notes here. Yeah. I got a bunch of notes. We'll see how long this
Roger,
slide time. Wake up! It's slide time.
So I did say last week as we were watching the film, and in the description of the film, I included the 10 clues that David Lynch himself wrote down for viewers to look for. And this is a rare thing. I'm not sure if it was, the studio that insisted or what it was, but he actually gave us some clues. Some of them pretty ambiguous, some of them awfully on the nose, and I'm going to address those. So I'm going to quickly read through the clues, and then we'll take them one at a time. Number one, pay particular attention to the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. Number 2, notice appearances of the red lampshade. 3, can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kessler is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again? An accident. Oh, number 4, an accident is a terrible thing. Notice the location of the accident. 5, who gives a key and why? 6, notice the robe, the ashtray, and the coffee cup. 7, what is felt, realized, and gathered at Club Silencio. 8, did talent alone help Camilla? 9, note the occurrences surrounding the man behind the Winkies. And number 10, where is Aunt Ruth? Now, let's take them one at a time. Number 1, pay particular attention to the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. Okay, first, there are 2 things that I know because of my experience with David Lynch. First, Lynch is really big on The Wizard of Oz. See our discussion of Wild at Heart a few weeks back. There is an infamous jitterbug scene in The Enchanted Forest. From The Wizard of Oz. Now, that is about the best picture that I could get because it is an excised scene. There was originally, this was originally shot for the Wizard of Oz, but later cut. Also, in Alfred Hitchcock's Shadow of a Doubt, there's a dance sequence before the opening credits. Lynch pays homage to Shadow of a Doubt in Blue Velvet. Also in Jam Session, 1944, Ann Miller, who played Coco, and I'm going to actually copy this link, plays a naive, idealistic young actress who received a trip to Hollywood as a reward for winning a dance competition in her small hometown. An identical scenario to the one which brings Betty to Hollywood. That movie can be watched on YouTube for free at the link that I have just provided. Let me back up because we want to focus back on this opening shot of our protagonist. Here we see what we assume is a dance contest Diane later refers to at Adam's dinner party. When Diane tells her story of the dance to Coco, she gets a response that says volumes, a pat on the hand and a pitiful, "I see, dear." Coco doesn't buy it, so we probably shouldn't either. I also don't think that it's coincidence that Coco is played by Ann Miller, famous dancer herself. Diane's story would be far more plausible told by Ann Miller than by a young girl like Diane. And again, the reference to jam session is, very clear. Now, what are we seeing in the opening? A real dance or a dream? If it were a real dance that Diane participated in and presumably won, we might expect to see other participants wearing fairly authentic period attire, 40s and 50s, but we don't see any greasers and poodle skirts. We don't see garish colors and flashy costumes one might expect of a nostalgia buff. We see subdued colors, pretty plain and ultra authentic, even conservative attire. Two things we also don't see: Diane is not dressed appropriately for the period, more like preparing to receive an Academy Award. And two, we never actually see her dance with the other contestants, nor do we see her partner. All the images of her, I don't know if that's parents or grandparents that show up. Let me bring that up. I said grandparents. I don't know if they're grandparents or parents, whatever.
I always assumed grandparents.
Yeah, it looks like age, and this is what I had written down years ago. Now I'm kind of questioning that, and I'll explain why later. All the images of them show up in this scene quickly and get fuzzy and unsteady. I believe this suggests that there is something unclear and unstable about her relationship with them, and it keeps getting in the way of this perfect picture. In fact, I believe that there is a clue that she is having trouble dealing with her memory of them and is repressing something related to them. This theory is also supported by the scene of them smiling so absurdly in the cab later on, putting on a happy face, pretending everything is okay, and their appearance as fearful objects during Diane's final breakdown. Now, while I don't believe that Diane ever won a dance contest, I do believe the dance contest we see is meant to be real. The dancing, attire, style are too authentic to be a dream or a fantasy. I think the story that Diane tells is true. It's just not her story. Maybe it's Aunt Ruth's. Coco gives key to Betty. I'm sure you and your aunt have an understanding, she says. If you consider all of this stuff related to the dance as one clue, the second would be the falling into the pillow. There we go. Oh, more like that. I don't think that this takes a great deal to figure out. This is us seeing it first person, the same scene that we see at the end from third person, her view as she dies. This seemingly obvious clue is crucial to the story because it serves as a bookend with the self-deletion at the end, letting us know that everything is in between is, in quotes, her life flashing before her eyes. Okay. Number 2, notice the red lampshade. And why do I have the wrong here? Hold on a second. I got to find my notes for this one again. I'm from Sparkwood in 21. Mulholland Drive. Here we go. Lampshade. There we go. Whoa, that's kind of small.
It's okay. It's like a movie. You're zooming in.
Zooming in, exactly. Okay, notice the appearance of the red lampshade. There are actually quite a few, several of which are ridiculously difficult to spot. A reflection in a window and in a background shot in a storefront window. I'll just focus on the most obvious. We see 2 obvious red lamps, one in the dream and the other in Diane's room. The former we see on a stand nearby a phone at the end of a phone chain in the middle of the Hollywood conspiracy. The important clue this indicates is Mr. Roque. Mr. Roque's statement, the girl is still missing. I'll come back to this. The other is when Diane wakes up and thinks of Camilla. We learn that the phone by the red lampshade is actually her own. I'm sorry, I'm going between two screens here.
Mm-hmm.
her own home telephone. When she answers it, Camilla invites her to 6980 Mulholland Drive. Now, the two lampshades serve a simple purpose: parallel images in two realities. But there are many images that do the same thing. The film is full of visual echoes. What makes the red lampshade important is actually their proximity to the phone. My theory is the red shade coupled with the phone is symbolic of a call girl operation. And since we see the phone is Diane's, that she was a call girl. This is how the call girl operation that Diane was involved in probably worked. A call would be made by a client, also known as a John, to a middleman in a fancy hotel. John would arrange to rent a room from the middleman, and in most cases, have a call girl sent to that room. But the John might also have the call girl sent somewhere else. The John would explain what type of call girl he wanted, and then the middleman at the hotel would call a pimp to have him send over someone that fit the bill. John would then never have to deal with people like the pimp. Call girl pimps would not have their girls on the street. Instead, they would just need a phone number for the girl, allowing the girl to hide their involvement in prostitution from the rest of the world. Call girls can live double lives, and as can their Johns. Because it was Diane's phone that rang at the end of the chain of calls, we learn that she is a call girl living a double life. The call in the fantasy was the result of a chain of phone calls that led up to the phone of an unknown person at the time who never answered the call. Based on the symbolism and plot line, whoever owned the phone was most likely a call girl. We also saw the arm of the hairy armed man making the call to the call girl's phone. Again, based on the symbolism and plot line, we can guess that whoever made that call was the call girl's pimp. Now, both mysteries are resolved by a twist in the great tradition of the Mobius strip. Diane turns out to be the one answering the call girl's phone, and Camilla is the one making the call. Diane's involvement in the call girl in the call girl business has already been uncovered in the analysis, but Camilla's complicity in Diane's plight has not been explored as thoroughly. Because Camilla has made the phone call that was associated with the hairy armed man, we know that Camilla has had something to do with the pimping of Diane in Diane's real life. I believe this scene tells us that the hairy armed man is not a real person, but instead a symbol of something hairy that strong arms people within its reach, like Diane in some ways. The hairy thing is her beauty to seduce people like Diane, to get them to do her bidding. This is the smoking gun that points to the abusive nature of Camilla's relationship to Diane. We must now question Camilla's motives in wanting Diane to come to Adam's party. Is there some reason that she wants Diane to meet there, like Luigi, a character who shows up later at the party? Is it very possible that this is part of her motive, but other dark motives of Camilla become apparent as well? When Diane begins to realize all of this, in her mind, Camilla's corruption becomes similar to the filthiness of the hairy armed man's apartment that we saw in the earlier scene of the fantasy. If this seems like a big leap to you, just wait. I have more to say on that later. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any bit. Now, this was another one. This is, remember, 2 Points Girl.
Yes.
And this was the other lamp that was. This is. I have to assume this was unintentional, but still, it was there. So I thought I'd just show a picture of it for completeness sake. And now we go on to number 3, which is, I don't have any visuals for that because, okay. Number 3 is, can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kessler is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again? We hear on the set that Adam Kessler is auditioning for the leading role in the Sylvia North story. Stagehand sang the Sylvia North story, Camilla Rhodes, take 1, just when the blonde Camilla walks in. The movie title is mentioned again by Diane at Adam's dinner party. Wilkins says that Bob Brooker directed the Sylvia North story and Camilla was great in it. Judging from the title, the Sylvia North story is presumably a tragic story of a fallen starlet for which both Diane and Camilla were auditioning. Now, in reality, Diane and Camilla met on the Sylvia North story directed by Bob Brooker. Camilla got the lead and played off well, while Diane had been rejected for her apparent lack of talent. Camilla and Diane became friends, lovers, and Camilla managed to get Diane bit parts in some of her subsequent films. That's what we learn at the dinner party. Now, Camilla's latest picture, the title is never mentioned, was directed by Adam Kessler, also featuring Diane in a minor role. Camilla and the director fell in love at the film wrap party. They announced their engagement. Now, in Diane's dream, the identities got twisted up. Bob Brooker, whose film The Sylvia North Story can certainly be called a masterpiece, is now miming a hapless and inept third-rate director whose flick doesn't even make it to the big screen. He only speaks when being prompted and fails to recognize the great talent of Betty where anyone else thinks she's got star power. This is Diane's way of expressing her dislike for how Bob Brooker once spoiled her career. Bob's real-life part as the director of the Sylvia North Story is now played by Adam Kessler, because in Diane's mind, the movie would have been done better with Adam as the director and herself in the lead. But in the same manner as Diane regards him for his professional qualifications, she also dooms him for intruding into her affair with Camilla. So she lets him experience her own downward path in Hollywood, which essentially incorporates being cheated on, losing control, going broke. This way, Diane obtains gratification for Adam stealing away Camilla and leaving her life in a mess. As far as I can tell, there's never been an actual film called The Sylvia North Story. But interestingly enough, in 1965, during the possible time period of the songs sung during the audition, there is a movie called Sylvia. The title character's full name is Sylvia West. And the movie recounts how the title character was sexually abused by her stepfather at age 14, and how she became a prostitute when she was older. She survived her ordeal while she was a prostitute through her close friendship with other women, and she ultimately leaves prostitution, goes on to be a successful poet. Except for the ending, the story is amazingly like the story of Diane, who you can say was the Sylvia that came from the North. Thus, we get Sylvia North. And as long as we are on names, the name of Diane and Camilla cannot be coincidence, given the relationship between these two names and Greek mythology. I suspect there is some symbolism here, but I have yet to put my finger on it. Number 4, an accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. Now I can bring up my accident picture. All right. Oops, we did it again. Here we go.
Like Brittany.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to resist.
On the way to 6980 Mulholland Drive at Adam Kessler's house, It is the place where Diane is picked up by Camilla, following her hand in hand up through the secret passage. Diane, through though maybe Camilla was interested in reconciling with her she thought maybe Camilla was interested in reconciling with her after all, but did not know about Camilla's surprise announcement for later that night. The party turned out to be a horrible humiliation for Diane, so in her rage and jealousy, she orders a hit on Camilla. Later, she feels remorse about it. In Diane's dream, Rita is getting hijacked on her way to Adams at the same place, but she escapes the hit and accident. Possible interpretations. One, she messed up. The messed up hit both prevents Camilla from reaching her destination, the dinner party, and allowing Diane's guilt to be assuaged as the hit fails. This way, Diane wants to undo her terrible crime. Two, if an accident is to be taken figuratively and not literally, then the dream accident of Rita on Mulholland Drive is just a stand-in for Diane's accident, an unexpected and traumatic event, the dinner party, where her illusions are shattered. Or three, if Diane's dream, the hit on Camilla, was initiated by the shadowy consortium of producers who decided to not have her in their movie, they ambushed Camilla on her Mulholland Drive ride in the same way as Camilla set Diane up, bringing her to the party. I tend to believe the second, the dinner party and having everything shattered, by the announcement. Okay. Who gives a key and why? Let's see. Key. Here we go. All righty. So, I can zoom in a little bit, I suppose. This was really hard. I had to do screen captures to get as good a picture as I possibly could.
Looks good.
Yeah. When I zoom in, I think, yeah. So Coco, from Aunt Ruth to Betty to enter the dream world, actually, right? So that's her giving her the key to the apartment. Then the hitman gives the blue key to confirm the deal is done. Who gets the key? Rita in her bag. Oh, wait a minute. Do I have that one? Yep. Rita in her bag with the hit money. Diane wants to transfer her guilt. There's no way Betty Elms would carry it in the dream. And Diane, do I not have one of the... Oh, I didn't get one on the coffee table. Diane on her coffee table, probably she retrieved it from somewhere else. So my observations are only one key is actually given in the film, and that's the key that Coco gives to Betty. The hitman doesn't really give a key. He leaves a key for Diane. Moreover, Betty doesn't touch Rita's blue key at all. There is a sleight of hand going on here. The viewers are lured to focus on the blue keys, but neither is ever given. Betty is given the key by the key to Aunt Ruth's apartment because Aunt Ruth, well, spoiler for another clue that I'm coming up to, number 10, Aunt Ruth is dead. Just as Diane is given another key because Camilla is dead. We're getting to that. So if the Coco key is a clue, then Coco's relationship with the two main protagonists needs some further examining. Okay, notice the robe, the ashtray, and the coffee cup. I think I kind of covered these pretty well, but let's get into it. There's a lot of robes that we see. So first robe, Ruth's this purplish multicolored one at Haverhurst with the note for Bitsy, Betty. Betty uses it to cover Rita, and Rita is wearing it her first day around. Okay. It was almost regal. It was clearly meant for Betty, but only Rita wears it. Betty is never able to put it on. When you look at these clues, you begin to see that Diane envied Camilla because she was enjoying the success that Diane had wanted, but had been dreaming of since her days in Deep River. Rita's wearing a distinctive red robe with a black collar on the second day during the rehearsal scene with Betty. Of course, Betty wears a bright pink
Bathrobe.
Let's see. Wait a minute. Where was I? Oh, yeah, at the rehearsal. Diane wears a shabby white-ish, I guess, robe. When Diane remembers the flashbacks in her apartment, it looks like a faded version of her dream robe, a representation of Diane's financial coming down in LA, perhaps. And then we get to, when Diane is wearing a bathrobe in real time, neighbor scene, the self-deletion. When we see that she's wearing hot pants, it's a flashback to the couch scene. Okay. Lynch said to notice the robe, the ashtray, and the coffee cup. But which ashtray? So the reason I think the ashtray we're told to pay attention to is the piano ashtray, which I'm showing right here, is because when Diane's neighbor comes to take it back, this gives us a very clear indication of the sequential order of the following scenes. Hence, any scene following this scene in which the ashtray is on the table is obviously a flashback. Any scene where the ashtray is gone is obviously happening further forward in the timeline. So, for example, this scene, we know what the girls are doing on the right there, right? So obviously this is happening before she's in the shabby, white robe and the neighbor is coming to pick up the ashtray. However, there is also an ashtray with cigarette butts by the phone. On the table by the red lamp, we see an ashtray filled with butts of filtered cigarettes. Diane doesn't smoke, so why is the ashtray filled with butts when Diane goes to pick up the phone by the red lamp? Whose cigarette butts could those have been? One of the butts is stained with red lipstick. Are we supposed to account Camilla for that? Camilla takes a pretty big drag on Adam's cigarette during the dinner party. She certainly does so naturally. Perhaps she's the one who smokes those cigarettes at Diane's. Diane keeps her cigarette butts around because she feels strangely connected to, obsessed with them. And also Diane keeps the nice piano ashtray so that Camilla can smoke comfortably by the couch. But then again, the drag could also suggest Camilla is a casual smoker who likes to bum smokes off of other people and wouldn't buy a pack of her own. The butts in the ashtray have brown filters, and the only person we saw smoking cigarettes with brown filter tips being the hitman and Lainey, the prostitute. If the prostitute represents Diane, it must be Diane who had this smoking habit when she was dealing with her activity in the call girl business. It is not Joe's or pimp in some circles. As that means that they would have to rendezvous at Winky's and bother with the whole don't show me that effing thing here. But directly at the privacy of her own home instead, since he should be a real comfortable guest that comes over a lot, leaving the same usual brand of cigarettes and all. There is no proposition going down in that place. Different kinds of men coming and going does not fit to just one kind of cigarette brand left in that occupied ashtray. Adam and Camilla are shown smoking white filter tips and, white filter tips or non-filtered cigarettes at the dinner party. Betty does complete the gesture of a stellar smoker when receiving the compliments of Rita after their melodramatic rehearsal of the page fax to Coco. The neighbor's piano ashtray suggests that she is smoking. Could the cigarette butts be hers? Now, coffee cup. Okay. Diane brews herself a coffee in a cup similar to those at Winky's. This could be pure coincidence, a clue to her being employed at the diner and being a kleptomaniac, a clue to Diane's dream incorporating personal objects. If so, are we to take the hitman scene in Winky's likewise as a fantasy and not based on a real life event? I did want to point out that here's the one from Winky's, and this is hers. They are very similar, but they are not identical, I don't think. I think they are two different styles.
The mugs?
It's hard to tell because they're both flared at the bottom, but the flare at the top seems smaller in the first picture than the second one. That could just be the angle. I'm not 100% certain.
It could also be that she just swiped a cup from a Winky's.
Well, yeah, and that was the first one that
I see. Okay.
But however, I also don't want to bypass the entire possibility that it's just a prop that got reused. I mean, I don't think that David, although David Lynch is meticulous about details, I don't think he's perfectly infallible. He's not, what's his name? Stanley Kubrick level,
yes,
OCD. So I might be reading too much into that. There is two more coffee cups though that we need to look at. Of course, there is the
espresso.
Yeah, at the Ryan Board conference, Luigi orders a cup of espresso. At the pool party, Diane sips coffee from a cup, and SOS is written on it. This echoes the "help me" cry of Vincenzo Castiglieri at the meeting. The cup sports the same color but different style and pattern as Luigi's espresso cup earlier. But again, and also different sizes as you would expect from an espresso cup. But, the little markings on the top and the bottom do kind of make me think they were intended to be some kind of a parallel. Again, could be reading way too much into it. Now, let's see. Club Silencio. I don't have specific visuals for this one. What is felt, realized, and gathered at Club Silencio? Okay. Visual and oral clues for the dreamer and for the viewer. What you saw in a dream. Reminder for dreaming Diane Selwyn that all these beautiful things she's constructed are illusionary. Llorando spells out the truth about Diane's unrequited love. If we look at Club Silencio as at the narrative angle, the first almost obvious significance of the sentence, of the sequence, is to indicate that everything Diane dreamed so far is not real. The smooth flow of a noir mystery is broken. So at the same time, Club Silencio is a neat little addition to further remind the viewer that what you are seeing and viewing is not real. The illusionary nature of cinema. The Club Silencio scene is preceded by the mimic of Bergman's famous shot from Persona to prepare us for another implication of the sequence. Lynch's statement about the illusionary nature of cinema. That theme is very strongly present in Bergman's movie as well. Lynch is both vividly demonstrating the importance of the combination of sound and image, making an absolutely devastating and cruel statement about the art of acting, which is, I suspect, why Naomi Watts, struggles, right? And is emotionally manipulating us, usually through the, usually though he informs us at several points that he intends to manipulate us, but we fall for it anyway. The theme of emotional manipulation. The blonde wig scene that also precedes the Club Silencio sequence well prepares this theme. We can manipulate things as we will. We're here to play with your emotions. You cannot trust your senses. You can't remember who you are. And if you could, you can't trust your memories. What is dream? What is real? Betty, Rita, Diane. Your identity is a construct, as is your sexual persona. Philosophical layer. Life is an illusion. Reality is relative. Perception is reality. Therefore, everything we see is a construct of our eyes. This philosophical theme harmonizes very well with the Eastern philosophical thought. Maya equals illusion. Please note, Lynch is a yoga, or was a yoga practitioner. I wrote this many years ago. The theme also goes extremely well with postmodern thought. Postmodernists would have a field day with this movie. At this point, I would like to address why the dream. I think there are many things Diane is trying to rewrite in her memory, but I believe strongly that there is an underlying repression of some sexual abuse in her past, and I think the Club Silencio gives us clues. The name of the Club Silencio refers to the silence in Diane's mother or grandmother regarding the abuse. The magician represents the abuser, and the blue-haired lady, Diane's mother or grandmother. The magician says in various languages that there is no band, there is no orchestra, that it is an illusion. This is him telling us and Diane realizing that the jitterbug contest isn't real. It's just an escape. Once the magician establishes this with the grandmother or mother watching in silence, he says, "Listen," and raises his arm, causing thunderclaps, similar to the raised arm and thunderclaps that drove Diane into the bedroom at the end of the movie. If you listen closely, you will hear a feminine gasp. Sounds very much like sex and a man grunting. If you watch at the same time, you see terror in Betty and Diane's face, her body shaking, but not in the normal trembling fashion, but kind of an up and down movement. See where I'm going with that? The magician's face shakes along with her, and the sights and sounds end with the thrust of the magician and the grunting male sound. The magician gets a devilish evil look in his face, and the blue-haired lady still looks on in silence and then disappears. Now, I think this may not have been entirely necessary, but I did bother with just because we have two different Camillas to discuss here. Did talent alone help Camilla? Blonde Camilla Rhodes is pushed by the Castiglione brothers to get the role. Diane makes up a conspiracy theory as a rationalization for why she never became famous in real life. She refuses to accept responsibility for losing the lead part. Raven-haired Camilla had an affair with the director. She probably used her sex appeal and was willing to sleep around to get ahead. Note the Lococo is throwing over at Camilla and Adam when Betty said at the dinner party, anyway, Camilla got the part in the Sylvia North story, seemingly knowing how Camilla used her sexuality to further her career. Let's see, number 9. Yes, behind Winkies. Note the occurrences surrounding the man in quotes behind Winkies. Dan meets the face of this god awful feeling. He dies from a heart attack after seeing the monster again. Only it's not a monster anymore. It's a pathetic bum, stripped of everything, sad and disheveled. He is unleashing. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over a sentence. I kind of got ahead of myself. He dies of a heart attack after meeting the monster. Near the end of the film, we see where is it? Near the end of the film, after the hit on Camilla is settled at Winkies, we see the monster again, only it's not a monster anymore. It's a pathetic bum, stripped of everything, sad and disheveled. He is unleashing the miniature couple of old people who then drive Diane down the hallway to her ultimate end. After Diane's death, we see the monster superimposed on top of the smoke, the excessive smoke that would have come from, it was way too much smoke to have come from a gunshot, but there was all that smoke. And then we see the face fades out while Diane's face fades in. This last appearance of this, in quotes, man is especially instructive because with the connection between his face and Diane's face, we are being told that this monster is yet another persona of Diane. And so we realize that this is not a man at all. He is a she. And as I had pointed out last week, this character was played by Bonnie Aarons. So we know with certainty that the person was female. I think that this character can be regarded as a pseudo stand-in for Lynch himself, who has appeared in many of his previous works. It's a metaphor for the man behind the curtain, in this case, the man behind the wall. In Lynch's beloved and much referenced The Wizard of Oz, which is about dreams, aspirations, and the way in which we delude ourselves. Where is Aunt Ruth? Number 10. In Diane's dream, Aunt Ruth is shooting a film in Canada. She is letting Diane stay in her apartment. Note, there is an old joke in the movie business. Acting in Canada is being dead. In reality, we learn from Diane at the dinner party that Aunt Ruth is dead, but has left her an inheritance. Now, I have made allusion. Okay, so I've gotten through the 10 points, right? Up until now, I've been pretty vague about my evidence, and I wanted to focus on the 10 clues. But now, as promised, I want to explain why I believe Diane was abused. Here are those clues. In the beginning of the film, the old couple are standing next to Betty after she won the jitterbug competition. After the close-up of Betty standing with them, the image blurs, becomes clear, blurs again. This is similar to the effect when Diane is violently self-pleasuring near the end of the film and in a transition into the dinner party. At the airport, we hear the old lady saying, "It's been so nice traveling with you." But as Betty is arriving for her new life, she parts with them there. Diane sees them leaving in the limo, but with very menacing looks on their faces, suggesting that even though she has left them behind, they are still lurking out there as possible menaces in the way that memories of physical abuse are. And we know that to be the case because they do come back at the end, right? A little girl's and man's giggles followed by high-pitched screams are heard before the old couple drive Diane down the hallway at the end of the movie. We could see this as a repressed memory coming back to Diane. In the end, the old couple coming from the paper sack with I don't know if my cursor shows up on screen, with a pop top and a piece of meat, representing use, abuse, and being discarded. Betty comes from Deep River, Ontario. Deep River was the name of the apartment complex of Dorothy in Blue Velvet, where she was repeatedly abused by Frank. The cowboy appears smiling at Diane's bedroom door and says, "Time to wake up, pretty girl." Yeah, that one is a little bit creepy. Now, this one is probably the biggest clue, in my opinion. Okay, wait a minute. Let me zoom in a little bit. That's a very famous painting. The Beatrice Cenci painting in Aunt Ruth's apartment. Beatrice Cenci was a young Roman noblewoman who lived from 1577 to 1599. She was a victim of family abuse by her father, and so she hired two men to kill her father and then make it look like an accident. Even though she was caught and executed for the crime, along with other family members, the sympathies of the public were with Beatrice. She became legendary as a symbol of lost innocence of a victimized daughter, and she has inspired many works of art, books, plays, and even a few movies that attempt to capture her story. One author, Percy Bysshe Shelley, wrote a play about the tragedy called The Cenci. In Beatrice's story, and said Beatrice's story is about the most dark of secret caverns of the human heart. I don't think we need to, go much farther than to draw another comparison to Laura Palmer. And I think, as we've talked about Laura Palmer, we can talk about other things that we've talked about that were clearly inspirations to that. Another one is not at all obvious, but certainly an easier connection than the painting, is the Rita Hayworth poster.
Yeah.
It is no secret that Hayworth was allegedly victimized by her father. The audition scene. In the scene, she is rehearsing with an actor named Woody, and Betty's character refers to him as Dad's best friend. Woody and Dad's best friends are, well, what would Dad's best friend Woody be? Just saying. In her dream, Betty takes control and flips the tables. She is the one who makes the more sexual advance towards Woody. This is Diane's way of dealing with her abuse by, in her dream, trying to take control of it. In Twin Peaks, it is Laura Palmer who refers to Bob as Dad's best friend. Bob, her father's evil identity, was abusing her for years. Also, we know not only from her backstory and the secret diary and so forth, she became something of a promiscuous person, kind of, almost becoming abusive in her sexuality as well. So again, the parallels. The director saying, "Don't play it for real until it gets real." That's Betty Diane. That Betty Diane can imagine how to play this scene for real must give us pause to think why she can do it so well. What does she bring from her background to the role that helps her to understand it so well? The naivete of Betty saying how Wally must be okay because he seems so nice and is a friend of her aunt. The bruises on the prostitute's left arm indicate violence. When Adam opens the door to find Lorraine in bed with the pool man, the latter says, "Just forget you ever saw it. It's better that way." This dialogue in Diane's mind telling her to repress the memories. In the scene on the couch when Camilla says, "We shouldn't do this anymore," Instead of asking why or being hurt, Diane does what worked for her abuser. Tells Camilla vigorously, "Don't say that," and hurts her physically. This scene parallels the audition scene. Peculiar violence in the self-gratification scene. Also, when Diane self-gratifies, we see a fan for a few frames against the blurring wall. I kind of see this as a parallel to the fan in Twin Peaks, which Leland used before going into his daughter's room. Some of the lines in the convertible film scene, like when she cries, just let her fall into you. And when you kiss her, it's all one continuation of that move. There is a potential that children who are abused end up becoming in adult relationships with an abusive partner. Diane was definitely mentally and psychologically abused by Camilla, so the abuse in her youth might have caused her to gravitate towards abusive, unfulfilled relationships now. Opening and Closing Pandora's Box is the name of a training program teaching medical professionals concrete skills to help them screen for and address sensitive family problems in their young patients, including child abuse and adolescent substance abuse. Could be referenced by the blue box. We see presumably Aunt Ruth scan the room looking precisely at the same spot on the carpet where the blue box dropped down, only Aunt Ruth sees nothing, suggesting that the abuser was the male and the female partner either overlooked it, turned a blind eye to it, or somehow missed it altogether. I draw a parallel to Sarah Palmer. In Club Silencio, one female in, there we go. In Club Silencio, one female in the audience bears a striking resemblance to Cheryl Lee, who played Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks, who was abused by her father. I've confirmed that neither Phoebe Augustine nor Cheryl Lee were in Mulholland Drive, but the resemblance is too good to be a coincidence. Again, my opinion. I will note that Phoebe Augustine is listed in IMDb as patron at Club Silencio, but Phoebe Augustine herself has confirmed that she was not in this film. Strange Human Sounds in Club Silencio before Betty goes into convulsions. Now, I'm going to recount what I talked about in clue number 7. Well, no, I'm not going to read all through it. Again, we kind of did cover that. So there you go. And at that point, I am going to stop sharing the screen. How do I do that? There should be a little doodah that stop screen. Yeah, there we go. Because I don't have any other slides. At this point, my notes go into talk about the cowboy, but I kind of feel like we should shift to you guys talking about what you guys think about what I said. And I'd like to, before I get into my thoughts on the cowboy, which I think have evolved over the years, I'd like to hear yours. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys now.
So it seems from what you were saying, like abuse is at the center of a lot of all this.
And that would seem that does kind of fit with what you see in so many of Lynch's products, right? Definitely, it was the central through line in Twin Peaks. We definitely saw it in Blue Velvet with Frank, right? We see it a little bit in Wild at Heart with the bloke that comes in when Nick Cage is away and whatnot. And,
the creeper.
Anyway, the creeper, yeah. So yeah, this this exploitation and abusiveness definitely are major through lines, I think, for David Lynch. Yeah.
Almost like the seedy side of Hollywood versus the glitz and the glamour.
Well, I think there's no doubt that even if I'm overanalyzing this, and this is way, way on the nose, I think he's definitely portraying Hollywood in a very negative light. I think he's being very backhanded, and I think in a very fair way to Hollywood. Yeah.
All right. So, I don't know. I remember something that Roger Ebert said in his original review, though. He was almost acting like they were the same woman, but again, I don't know if we.
Well, exactly. I think that, and we're going to get into this more when we get into later films. This whole idea of multiple. You could have an actor playing different roles that. Well, I mean, even look at Coco, right? Coco, you see as the landlady, right, at the apartment complex, right, and then later you see her as Adam, Adam's mother,
Yes,
or whatever, the director's mother, still called Coco, played by the same actress. Clearly, they're meant to be different people. I think all the people that you see playing multiple roles are playing different people, and who do they represent in reality as opposed to who they represent in the fantasy, right? But at the same token, you could have different actors playing aspects of the same, especially when you're talking about a dream sequence. Like I said in one of my liquid lunches, when a writer writes, we talk about the self-insert character, the Mary Sue, right? But then again, for a writer, every character is a self-insert in some way, shape, or form, because you have to draw on your own experience to write a character, right? So a dreamer, when you are dreaming, right? When I lie down and I have a dream about, Mr. Kostopoulos, my high school psychology teacher, and my mom, and the girl that lived 3 doors down from me, right? Those are all projections in my mind. Those aren't those real people that I did meet in life, right? Those are my projection of those people, my imaginings of them doing and saying things in my dream. So by the same token, in a dream sequence in a movie, who's the dreamer? Kind of going back to season 3 of Twin Peaks, who is the dreamer? And when you identify who the dreamer is, you got to figure that everybody in that dream is a projection of that dreamer.
Yeah.
So she basically has a sucky life, but she's imagining she has a better life. But then her invasive thoughts start coming in and letting her know, no, your life is really sucky after all.
Yeah, because you can only delude yourself so long before reality seeps back in. Again, my postulation is that pillow to pillow, that's the bookends. This whole story that we're seeing, this imagining of her story and the subsequent revelations of actual memories are all happening in the span of seconds as her face is falling into the pillow. That's my supposition.
The red pillow. A
Yeah,
red
exactly.
pillow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which doesn't show stains as bad.
Let me see. I am the 13th child says, I believe in reality Coco was his mother and the fantasy Coco was the landlady.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yep. Now, I'm going to temper it slightly. Even the later scenes that are clearly memories, you also wonder if those are 100% accurate. We're also seeing those from her point of view as well. But they're probably more accurate than the complete fantasy that we saw before that.
Yeah. She's kind of I want to say unpleasant, at least especially at the party. But even instances at the apartment says like you got to handle this or whatever. That's trouble. You got to handle this or something. What she was saying, right? I don't know the exact quote, but she
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
like she
exactly.
knows she's been around too long. She's seen it all, right?
Right. And again, I think that Ann Miller being in that role, given the role that I mentioned, and again, the link to that movie, you should probably check it out. There's a couple movies that I mentioned you might want to watch to give you even more insight into this one. Yeah.
There's an interesting scene earlier on when she says, "Call me Coco." Everybody does, and she's like, "Okay," and she says, and they say like, "Okay, Coco," and like she says it like she's known her for years, and it almost felt like that's a familiarity she hasn't earned yet, even though she was given permission to call her Coco. So
I agree. I think I think it's the way she's portraying herself there. I think she's got a false sense of friendliness and ideology. It's the way she wants to see herself, as being all shucksy darn, when that's really not who she is.
Okay. There was a lady that came to the door and said there was evil there. What was that whole thing?
At the time I mentioned that. I don't have that in my notes, but I mentioned it last week. I think Deleted Scenes actually made this analogy as well. She was like the log lady of this film. She's the one who's keyed into things are not what they seem. This isn't real, and it's like she's an early foil to the dream, to say this is not real. Wake up,
So what does that make the cowboy then?
That's what I was getting at.
Is the cowboy a foil? Yeah, are you still here, Steven? Maybe he had an emergency.
I'm here, yes.
Oh, okay, great. Any thoughts on the Coco? No, I don't know. I'm sorry.
On Coco. Well, yeah,
Coco, yeah.
I'm pretty much in agreement there. I think she is his mother. I think 13th Child is right. I don't know. Coco's not really a character I really have kind of really thought of. I guess I always focus on the women because they're the main story. But
right.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think Coco is his mother for real and in the fantasy the landlady. Because one thing that Diane seems to do is in her fantasy, she downgrades everyone.
Yes, to raise herself up.
Yeah. And I mean, even later on, even in her fantasy, the hitman is incompetent.
Right.
So, she always downgrades the people around her at first to make herself look better in her own mind. And then later on, when she begins to regret what she's done, because of course, my theory is the one that the person she's putting the head out on is Camilla. And that in the end, he is successful.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But she does not want to, because at that point, it's
too late.
She's starting to regret what she did.
Yeah.
But it's all gone down, and it is too late for her to bring everything back. My theory is at the end, that's Robert Forster at the door. And he knows it's her. That's the police coming for her at the end.
The knocking, you mean?
Yes.
That's brilliant. I never thought of that.
That makes sense, actually. That does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that was her escape.
Yes.
I gotcha.
That's
Wow.
I am going to be in prison the rest of my life because I have set these events in motion. And please stop playing that rap music outside my window, people. I'm trying to do a show.
It makes you feel better.
And,
I can't hear it. So yeah. Okay.
Okay, good. So yeah, it in my theory of my way of looking at the film, and you're definitely have brought up some things here that I hadn't considered.
Oh, okay.
But like that whole call girl thing, that makes me want to go back and watch the movie again.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time on that one, and the more I watch it, the more convinced I am. Yeah.
It tracks. It makes sense. And would give her more of a reason in the end to take Camilla out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's part of it. Now, there was something else in the chat. Let me scroll back up. And the people who have said hello and who have left super chats, we will get to you. I've been starring those. Don't worry about it. Now there was something in the chat that I thought was interesting. Let me see if I start it. Right. I believe the entire movie is the dream before death.
Right. Yeah.
Up to a point, yes. My theory has always been the only thing that's real in this movie is the third act.
Oh.
Right.
And that everything else is the fantasy in that moment before she does herself in.
Yes.
Which I
agree.
I grant you is a very dark way to look at the film. But I don't always. How else can you do it? I mean, to me,
an interesting statement. He said, "Did I see Aunt Ruth at the beginning? Watch Rita slip into her apartment even before she went back to get her keys, but seems to ignore it." I noticed that too, and I'm like, she doesn't see her.
Right. Mm-hmm. And at the end, when she comes back and doesn't see anyone there. Also, how Diane disappears. Right.
Well, that made me wonder if Diane was ever in the apartment to begin with, but I'm probably just reaching way too much there. I'm just, yeah.
But again, I feel like I've pretty well established that Aunt Ruth in reality is dead. And in the dream, it's whatever. It's a dream,
Right. Nate says, I don't see the call girl connection. That apartment is where the two women are used to meet in secret. Yeah, but I mean, you're suggesting with your theory, Troy, that this was not just a meeting place for her and Camilla. It was a meeting place for her and whoever else.
Well, see, okay. Again, this is what I was getting at when I was talking about the cigarettes. I got real specific about whose cigarettes I thought those were. And what I was saying is I do not believe she was bringing John's back to her apartment. So in other words, those cigarettes were all specific people. It was hers, it was Camilla's, it was, what's his name? The director, I forget his name. Because you go back and forth between the realities. She would usually go to a hotel or a motel that would be set up for her by a go-between, by a pimp. So all that would happen is she would receive a call at her apartment, and then she would leave there to go meet somebody. She wasn't entertaining men there. But yes, I suppose, she and Camilla were, meeting there. Yes. I mean, we definitely saw that on the couch, so.
I have no idea what you're talking about, and I am convinced that
I
that's all in
grieved
your
the
head.
walls was closing in. She couldn't go to prison and face further abuse in prison. Yeah, good point. And she had tremendous guilt about what she had done. See, and that guilt and the repressed memories and all of that are coming flooding in. And that's the couple coming and chasing her down the hallway. The sounds, the scream,
And that also, because you're questioning throughout the movie, like, who are these people?
Right.
And you only see them in connection to Betty. And of course, Betty is the fictionalized version of Diane. She's who she wants to be. So the fact that this couple, and hello to Ragnar, welcome to the show. What is it is the possibility that these could have been people who were family that was like abusive to her. That's possible. It kind of makes sense, because I've always wondered kind of, how do these people fit in exactly? Why kind of why at those moments does she see these people, especially at the end? Why them? Because I don't believe that they are there by accident. I think they are there for a specific purpose. David Lynch is not going to throw in just two characters like that and just suddenly have these random people who are there for no reason. They're there for a purpose. And if you think that Diane comes from this abusive background, then it is very possible that they were either directly involved or knew about it and did nothing.
Exactly. And that's why I kind of vacillated on parents, grandparents, whatever, because I mean, we don't know for sure, the assumption that there's a lot of allegories that I draw on to demonstrate the abuse, and they're all, one's a father, one's a stepfather, could it have been a grandfather? I guess. I mean, but again, we're kind of looking at shadows on the cave wall, trying to determine what's actually going on here.
That's when you start to go into audition territory. I don't know if you ever saw that film.
I don't think so.
But I'm trying to remember, because the female character in that film, the female lead in that film, also has an abusive relative, and I was trying to remember if he was a grandfather or an uncle.
Right.
The idea is that she wants to be a dancer, but he injures her leg and she can't anymore. And she becomes an actress later on. Anyway, nothing to do with Mulholland Drive, I don't think. But it just got me to thinking. Yeah, go ahead.
Which go ahead?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I don't remember that I was going to say anything.
Oh,
okay. We were leading to the cowboy.
Yeah. I wanted to hear Deleted's theories on the cowboy, and yours too, Boomer.
Theories on the cowboy. Okay. Well, we know this much. We know that if you see him, you see him once, you've been good. You see him twice, you've been bad. We have a character again, hello, our girl Diane, who
Mhm.
sees him 3 times. After which she's pretty much effed. And I think, all right.
And we know she was bad. You know, I mean,
Yes.
hiring a hitman to
A hitman
kill
to
your
kill
lover
someone
is not,
not
not
yeah.
good.
I think he's. I don't want to say he's God because I don't want it to come off sounding like it's some kind of blasphemous thing. I think in the world of the film,
Mm-hmm.
he is some kind of what I would refer to as upper management.
Ha.
In the world of the film, maybe he's a studio head, maybe he's somebody connected up to them, a fixer of some sort. Who's to say? But definitely someone who puts the fear of God into a person when
Mm-hmm.
they meet with him, because I am pretty sure when Adam goes up there, eventually does make his trek up to see the cowboy, I think there's a thought in the back of his mind where there's a 50-50 shot that I'm not coming back.
I almost got the impression, maybe even like, I don't know, an impression of like an angel. There's there's something not quite like he's not a person. I don't see him as like a
No,
human being, but it's
I
something
don't
that's taking
either.
on a human being appearance.
It's
So
interesting you say that.
yeah,
I did point out last week that he shows up with the sparking of electricity at the ranch at the top of the mountain, right? So I mean, there is that element of a supernatural element there. I did also want to point out Mel NYC Reviews, welcome. He said, do you post what your shows will be about in advance? One day I'd love to join the conversation. I don't talk about David Lynch as much as I want to. Well, we usually have the streams up, well, maybe not quite a week in advance, but yeah, they're usually up. You know, if you check Deleted Scenes live streams, for upcoming streams, we post it fairly early on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And throughout the week on all of our shows, we're talking about what we're going to be talking about on Live from Sparkwood 21 and all of our other shows throughout the week. So, I mean, if you want, I could kind of get into what my...
Okay. Well, first I want to say before you get into it though,
Okay.
do we see the cowboy as good or evil or neither? I'm just what I'm trying to figure out here. I mean, is it? I mean, he comes in and one of his curious statements was, so I assume by your answer that you're not someone that cares about the good life, you know.
Or maybe the cowboy is lower management as in the devil. That's an interesting thought too.
It's hard to say because he's not. I don't get the impression that he's in charge, but he's taking order. But he's like, he works for some higher purpose, and he's trying to set things as they're supposed to be. That's what I get the impression of. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's no nonsense. He doesn't really seem to have a sense of humor, even when he seems to laugh a little, which he doesn't. Or it's like everything about his the way he presents himself seems fake. The cowboy outfit seems fake. It's too cowboy, if you think about it. You know,
that element is true. The costume, absolutely true, but the way he acts, I'm not going to read too much into that at all because I know that behind the scenes, that guy's not really an actor.
But there's still the dialogue.
He was a friend of David Lynch's who was given a role, and he was literally reading off of cue cards. So we can't really read too much into that. You know,
Well,
I'm
You're
gonna
saying
give that the
not
benefit of
not
the doubt.
not only that, but I think that when he shows up, when he shows up at the party later, we see him in the background leaving.
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
talk to anybody. We just see him pass by in background, walks right out the front door. I almost think of that as, and I don't know why I always think this when I watch, even when I first saw the movie, when I noticed him walking by in the background, which could be construed as, hey, that's his final bow. Only he shows up
Again.
at Diane's apartment later, which is AKA the
Right.
third time she sees him,
Right.
so to speak. There's almost the thought that goes through my mind is he was there to see someone. He has spoken to that person, but now he has to go because he can't be seen there.
I had a different take on that particular one.
Okay.
I thought, and I don't feel strongly about this, I could easily be dissuaded from this, but my gut instinct was he was there for an event, to witness an event. It transpired. Now he's gone. Now he's leaving. Something, whether it was the announcement, and now I'd actually have to go back and see exactly at what point is he leaving, what's just happened before he leaves, and I'm actually not sure.
But
I remember.
I just get this idea that he had business there, but that business is over now. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Cowboy.
Yeah.
You can kind of take off now. Thank you. Because you
I mean, it would be interesting if
that
if that was. That would be really hard for us to pin down, though. I'm not putting it past David Lynch, but it would be very hard for us to infer if he was there for something completely unrelated to what was going on at the dinner party, and completely unrelated to our main character's storyline. If he was there for someone else entirely.
Well, what's interesting is if you see me once, that's good. You see me twice, that's bad.
What does it mean when we see you 3 times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can imagine David Lynch going, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to shave off your eyebrows so you look weird.
Yeah, probably.
They'll grow back. Don't worry.
All right. Because full disclosure, I'm not 100% certain about the Cowboy. That's why I wanted to hear what you guys thought first. Let me read off to you my thoughts on the Cowboy as they were about 10 years ago. Okay. And then let me evaluate them and see if I still feel that I agree with my 10 years in the past self and see what you guys think about it. Okay. So the real stumper for me is the Cowboy, a fairly small character that I had not given a great deal of thought to. However, I should know better. No character in a Lynch production, especially one scene in more than one scene, is ever unimportant. So I've given a great deal more thought. Yes.
I have an AI overview of what the Cowboy means in Mulholland Drive.
Okay, what does the AI say?
In David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, the Cowboy, a seemingly minor character, represents the multifaceted symbol, potentially embodying the darker aspects of Hollywood, a controlling force, or even a manifestation of Diane's subconscious.
Oh, please.
That's actually kind of reasonable. No. I went a different way with this, though.
Well, then it continues. It says he appears in 2 distinct contexts. First, in a dream sequence where he threatens Adam, and later in a brief, unsettling scenes where he wakes a sleeping girl, possibly a representation of Diane herself.
Yep. Okay, I'll get to that. That's a bit on the nose. So I have read many commentaries that argue this Cowboy represents Diane's abuser. Wake up, pretty girl. However, I'm unconvinced. I think if that were true, he would have a much bigger role. In fact, I tend to think if you're looking for a devil type figure, you'd think more the bum behind Winkies for that. So what if the cowboy is more of a good force in the story?
And we've also heard the line wrong, I think.
What
The cowboy's line actually was, if you see me more, you'll see me once more if you do good, twice if you do bad. So not if you see me once good, if you see me twice bad. It's if you see me more than once good.
Oh,
Twice.
that's an excellent point.
Yeah, you'll see me more than once if you do good, twice if you do bad.
So twice more, which would be 3. That's a good point.
I-
That's one way to look at it.
I have a point. Deleted scenes. Steven had mentioned earlier about making the God reference, but I think the guy who was drinking the espresso would be more like a God type character because he's the one I
But
think is really calling
he's
He's
a
the
all the
complete
shots.
studio head.
Yes.
Number one, a studio head is not going to be God. He is.
No, I
he's
understand
gonna
that,
be a
but he
powerful
commands
force.
every room he's in.
I think that he is a complete fabrication on her part.
Okay, fine.
That whole conspiracy, why she didn't get the role, why someone else did. It's not her fault. It's not because she lacked talent. It's that's how I take that. Anyway, let me get through this here. So he certainly seems to represent an empowered and awesome archetype within Diane's personality. He has an innate authority. His conversation with Adam is her internal dialogue. He proclaims simple, profound truths. Attitude determines the course of life. He makes Diane, by way of Adam in her dream, repeat this lesson, but she cannot grasp the significance. Then he tells her to submit to destiny, to detach from petty worldly ambitions and desires, to let the other girl get the role, and to ride his buggy through life and beyond with him as the driver and guide. Here are some other clues that led me to a godly theory. Okay. Adam must go to the top of the mountain to see him. He goes because he is told that the cowboy is the one that has control over his fortunes. When the cowboy arrives, the lights come on. Let there be light. When he leaves, darkness comes. Lynch often uses electrical short circuits and oddly behaving lights to indicate something supernatural is happening and that a supernatural character is present. He speaks to Adam of the parable about moral choices, or in parable about moral choices. He tells Adam that there are consequences for doing wrong, bad, and rewards for doing right, good. Adam listens, obeys, and is saved. Gets to produce his movie. He is talking to Adam, for crying out loud. That name should be self-explanatory who Adam is, right?
Sandler, he's really good.
Yeah. All right. Some out of context trivia, I think, has some bearing. The cowboy is in Mulholland Drive is generally thought to be patterned after cowboy star Tom Mix and William Hart. Wyatt Earp lived in Los Angeles the last few years of his life and was consulted on cowboy outlaw themes on Western films. He was friends with famous silent cowboy film stars Tom Mix and William Hart, who were pallbearers at his funeral. Isabella Rossellini, past fiance of David Lynch's, and Bill Pullman were in the 1994 movie Wyatt Earp. Wyatt spent time in Sierra Bonita Ranch in Arizona, owned by his friend and fellow cowboy Hall of Fame member, Colonel John Hooker. There are legends about how that name has carried forward in history.
Wait, John Lee Hooker, the blues guy?
No, Colonel John Hooker of military fame.
So not as interesting.
Charlton Heston and Tombstone,
legend
basically.
has it this is where Hooker comes from. The name Hooker for Hooker's girls. The Sierra Bonita Ranch provided meat to the U.S. Army. The term hooker is used to describe a prostitute. Comes from the Civil War General Hooker, who provided prostitutes for his men. Well, and that might be apocryphal, but it is the legend. Wyatt Earp ran several brothels during his lifetime, as did his ex-prostitute common law wife. Sunset Peak in Arizona overlooks the Sierra Bonita Ranch and has an altitude of exactly 6,980 feet. Remember, the house was 6980 Mulholland Drive. In 1940, near Tucson, Arizona, and within miles of Sierra Bonita Ranch and Sunset Peak, Tom Mix was killed in a car crash. So that is where my research led me and my thoughts at the time. This is why I kind of gravitate towards the whole. And again, it is, of course, a projection on her part. He is a character in her dream. But as one is preparing for death, one inevitably does pray and or conjure up images of God. So that also seems reasonable.
I don't think any of this is helped by the fact that we have a non-actor playing him, because usually you can ask an actor what their opinions on the matter is, but he's not going to have an opinion, or at least not one that we can take seriously, because he's just the producer. He's just some guy he put in there in the cowboy suit, right?
Well, in fairness, that would be true for just about any person who acted in a David Lynch production. When I talked to Charlotte Stewart, for example, she told me, about her interactions with her co-stars and, how they motivated and how they thought about their characters in the moment. But she was always quick to point out, but that doesn't mean that's what David and Mark were thinking.
Well, that's fine, but I also don't discount the actors' thoughts on this, because they're artists too.
Sure.
They're performance artists. So,
sometimes they do have an insight.
Yes,
but
yes.
For example, when it comes to again, Charlotte Stewart, when we asked her about her time on Eraserhead, we literally asked her, how was the effect of the baby done? She said, I can't tell you that. I promised David that I would.
Oh,
she
wow.
says, I know exactly how it was done and what it was, but
she gave her word that she wouldn't reveal it. Yes. Okay,
so I would imagine that there are those kinds of pitfalls in all of the interactions the actors had with David and whatnot. So if he made them promise, not to disclose, this role or what they thought or what he told, how he directed them or whatever. But honestly, I haven't encountered many of those in all the interviews that I've either been a part of or witnessed. Most people have been pretty open about how he got an emotion or a motivation in a scene out of them. And one can infer meaning in that. I did point out, for example, during the extensive lovemaking scene between Betty and Diane in about the midpoint of the movie, she says, I'm in love with you. And Rita has a reaction that is not what you would expect from that supposedly romantic moment. It was almost, really? I'm not so sure about that, or, oh, that's not good, That's kind of how it looked. Now, I'm not saying that she was specifically directed by David Lynch in that specific way. I'm just saying that's what I'm seeing there. And you have to assume that if a meaning is conveyed in a look, and that's what you're getting out of it, there was probably some direction in regards to that reaction.
Huh.
And again, given the the false narrative that we're seeing there, it seems reasonable that that's a little chink in the armor, right? The armor, when I say armor, I mean that's what this whole dream is. It is a defense mechanism against reality. And if something's a little out of place, or goes a little fuzzy, goes a little hinky, you kind of take notice of it. You realize there's a little bit of reality seeping through there.
If only there had been safe spaces when this movie was made.
No,
I'm kidding.
I think the foolish idea is to believe there is such a thing as a safe space.
Yes, that's probably true. Yes.
You had no real feeling. Yeah, there was. Well, see, that's the problem for Rita. You want to assume a genuineness, because in the narrative of the dream, she really is vulnerable. She's being cared for, and she's grateful, and you assume she's got feelings. But I feel like the bit of reality is showing through, where a little bit of Camilla is showing through there in a moment.
That's a lot to chew.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more that I could get into, like which of course I probably shouldn't on someone else's stream, but the same-sex relationship, with abuse in the background, and how one could have their personal preferences affected by past trauma and so forth.
I have a question though. The dude in Winkies who was having the dream or whatever, talking about the dream.
Yes.
Anything on that? We didn't touch on that at all. I'm just curious.
Well, again, when does it take place? It takes place within the dream narrative, right? So, but who's not there? Diane's not there.
Nope.
Right? So one of those people has to be the Diane self-insert, the dreamer. And since he's the one saying, I had this dream and this is what I saw, I do think that is an element of her psyche. The message of that whole sequence is, in her dream, in her self-delusion, in her self-protection, she knows that she has something dark that she has to address. That later on, the cowboy is going to tell her, it's time to wake up, sleeping girl. The Club Silencio is going to call it out and say, this is all fake, forcing her to open Pandora's box, to see the reality. This is the part of the dream telling her, yeah, you need to address what you're hiding from. Early on, kind of also filling in the audience to look for that. And it's that dark presence, behind that is the evil, the revenge plot, hiring a hitman to kill your lover, and all the things that you've done to survive, and all the hatred you have for other people, which is why later on, after you see her hiring the hitman, and then again we go behind Winkies and we see this character, it's deflated and it's pitiable. It's like, now that you've addressed it, what does it really matter, right?
Yeah.
Now you're starting to wake up. Now you're starting to see everything for what it is. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it anyway.
All right. Before we go too far into that, I do want to say hello to some people who joined us in the chat earlier on, and bring up a couple of super chats that we've gotten along the way. Of course, we did cover Groovy Ruby Hoove leaving the membership, which went to Joe DeBecky. Congratulations. Ruby again is not feeling well, going back to bed.
I'm sorry,
Take
yeah.
care, Ruby. I am the 13th child for $2. Greetings and salutations all. I have arrived. Nate, $2, saying hello. Mel NYC Reviews joining us, as well as Usarn G.
Hey, Usarn G, good to see you.
Mel also said that pillow scene at the very beginning of the movie with us entering her mind totally reminds me of one of my other favorites, being John Malkovich. Yeah, I can see that. Our resident Klingon has joined us, Mark Mounikoff.
Hey, Mark.
Rio Wade Nation Gaming Clips. Rio Hoshi. Charlotte Knight starred a werewolf.
Oh, no.
The Bird Woman. And Connie had her own live stream earlier tonight. Please check that out. In Buddhism, where's the witness? Witness who bears witness between the fantasy and the reality. The witness is the only constant that exists between reality and fantasy. Okay.
Who's that? Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Good.
All right.
That's right. We know that David Lynch was well versed in Buddhism.
I don't know.
Rio says, if it's all David Lynch, I'm going to be here regularly. Yeah. We started this show out basically as a Twin Peaks watch party where we watched every episode, including the third season on Showtime, and also the Fire Walk with Me movie. And once David Lynch passed, we decided let's discuss his films as well. So we've been doing that. We've already covered Eraserhead, The Elephant Man, Blue Velvet, and Wild at Heart. Those episodes are all up on our channels, so you can check those prior episodes out. We've done, I think, 70 some odd episodes of this program.
Oh yeah,
already.
maybe.
Yeah. So there's plenty of content to go around. So yeah. Glad to have you. The more the merrier. We also discussed the fan film, which was Queen of Hearts, which is so good that as far as I'm concerned, it's canon. So yeah. Glad to have you. The more the merrier. All right.
Why were the old people tiny at the end and like messing with her?
Just cause.
Okay.
No.
Because David Lynch is weird.
Shits and giggles. No.
Again, if that dark figure behind the Winkies is a representation of the evil, the bad, the sin, and whatnot, this is the needling little voices that led her to it. You know, the past trauma and all of that sort of thing. You know. And the memories, the repressed memories, you know, issuing out of that, which literally chase her to her death.
Yeah. I am of the mind, though, Rio, that I don't think that he's just throwing something in there just to be weird. I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. But in this movie in particular, I don't think anything is in there by accident. I think there's a point to all of it. And, you know, for all the people who say that his films are non-linear, I mean, this one isn't on purpose, but
yeah,
I say go back and look at Blue Velvet. That's about
That's
as linear
very
as
linear.
you
Yeah.
can get.
Yeah.
The Straight Story is exactly that. you
Exactly.
know, um,
The Elephant Man
even
is
for as crazy
mostly
as
linear.
oh, definitely. I mean, even Eraserhead, for as abstract as it is,
Yeah.
I think does have an A to B to C, beginning, middle, end. Um, so yeah, I always gave him the benefit of the doubt that while there could be multiple interpretations,
Mm-hmm.
which he would leave up to the audience. I think there is nothing really in any of his films that's there by accident,
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
And here's what I would say about anything that you see in a Lynch production that's, in quotes, weird. It's not meant to be interpreted literally. Look at it and say, how does that make you feel? Those little people with their little, like the voices, kind of like the fly in the original, the fly, help me, very off-putting, very creepy. And I think that's the intention. The question is, how does it make you feel? If there isn't a literal interpretation, then what is the feeling it evokes? That's what he's trying to communicate. At least that's my thought. I should be a bit clear. I think
another.
No, I was just reading the comment from Ryo.
Okay.
I should be a bit clearer. I think he deliberately will put in something that's not necessarily got any intentional meaning. It's there to be ambiguous. There is the possibility that he puts something there that he intends for you to project on, right? Something weird that he's like casting a line, right? He may not have a specific interpretation for it, but he intends for you to devise a meaning for it.
Nate says,
but I do again. I would say though, it's going to convey an actual emotion or feeling or whatever. I think that is intentional on his part.
Nate says, I think the beauty of David Lynch's day is very avant-garde without being pretentious about it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I would say, especially even in the way he talked about his work, right? When people would say, would you like to elaborate on that? No, I would not. And he would laugh. He would be like, because it's and he would usually say something like, it stands on its own or whatever. But he was always good-natured about it. He wasn't, like you said, he was not pretentious about it. I would compare and contrast that to the modern day people that are writing stuff and want to tell you exactly what they meant. And I sit there and go, shut the hell up. If you fail to communicate that, that's on you. I don't want to hear it now.
Right, because if you have to explain what you meant after the fact, that means you're not a good writer.
Yeah. What's the old saying? If you have to explain the joke, you didn't tell the joke right. Same thing.
I mean, you're a good writer if you can explain a scene and the reader or especially for books, the reader can actually envision what you just wrote out. They're talking about, a meadow with a maple tree with a swing, and you can envision that, they're a good writer.
Yeah.
If you can't envision it, it's like, what the heck are they talking about? Then they're not a good writer.
Yeah. Anyway.
Cool.
I actually feel like we actually communicated the meaning behind Mulholland Drive. What do you guys think?
Makes more sense now.
I mean, there may still be some minor questions about minor details, but I think by and large we got it.
I don't know. All I know is once Roger Ebert compared, when he saw this movie, he compared Naomi Watts to Gidget.
Well, you know what? If he's talking about the Diane Selwyn character,
That's probably what he was doing, referring to the character she was
then
playing.
he might.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that's a great
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah.
Not her as an actor. She's a great actor. She can do many different kinds of parts. But yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah.
I'll tell you, just this movie alone, when she plays the different roles, the
The strung out version.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, she is not the same person.
Doesn't look alike at all. Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's almost like an episode of Alias where she puts on the disguises and you don't,
I also feel like there was a good they did the makeup right on her too. She's like all fresh faced and bright through most of the movie, but later on she looks, for lack of a better term, dirty and sweaty.
Yep.
And not in a good way.
When you said sweat, now I have an image of Billy Idol saying sweat, sweat, sweat.
There's symbolism. Well, Lynch is he was in a reflection in a scene, and we decided, well, that's a great example. That was what's his name playing Bob, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that
because he was in the mirror, and that was an accident. He was not supposed to be in the mirror because they said they wanted to do that shot again. Well, why? Because Frank was in the mirror.
But honestly, it didn't change anything.
No,
it didn't change anything. He still had his plan for basically who the murderer was and what the whole backstory was. But now they'd given a face to the personality, the representing spirit within Leland. I thought that was quite brilliant. He had a way, and look, I mean, you could even say the same thing about just about everything related to casting in The Return. Who came back, who didn't come back, how they brought them back. He was literally working around reality. Whether it was Doc Hayward on a Zoom call or David Bowie as a tea kettle, These were not his original plans, but when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. When
life hands you lemons, you make a David Lynch film.
Yeah, exactly. When life gives you lemons, squeeze them into a tea kettle. I don't create stories. I believe stories are out there like fish in the sea, and every once in a while he hooks a good one.
Yeah, I think every creative, I think, would agree with that statement.
Yeah, wasn't it Da Vinci who said that David was already in the marble? He just had to dig him out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing because my Italian isn't that good.
Well, I mean, I've heard writers say, the story is already on the page. They look at that blank page as a slab of marble. Sorry, marble. Ugh, I got that on the brain. Sorry. And it's just that, that's the pitfalls of being a YouTuber, folks.
Right.
Yes.
Every writers, I've heard a lot of writers say, it's a slab of marble. I almost did it again. Damn. Slab of, I guess I'll be quiet. The story is there. You just have to chip away the marble. Is the kind of the short version of what I was trying to make sound cooler than I did before. I had a brain fart. Anyway, moving on.
And there were also stories that he told about how something happened on set. I mean, yeah, the Bob thing is a great example, but sometimes when an actor would give their insight or their thoughts, you know, he'd be like, "That's very interesting," and sometimes he would kind of go with it, you know.
At the same time, going, yeah, you're completely wrong.
Well, if he had a vision and he disagreed, he would definitely say it. It was meant to be his vision. But yeah.
Phew.
Boomer never
that was
jump in, you know. Yeah, don't.
No, I mean, I think
This feels
Troy's
good to
got.
be the Troy and Steve show, you know.
No, I mean,
yeah.
there's no birds in this movie. I did notice that.
No.
But
Oh, you're right. There wasn't. Yeah, not that I noticed anyway. Yeah.
Unless it was somebody's dinner.
yeah, I know. I was waiting to see somebody eating fried chicken or something, but no, that didn't happen. No,
Well, what
I
are we
mean,
discussing next week?
Oh yeah, yeah. What's on?
Sorry,
what's
Boomer, what were you going to say?
no, I was just gonna say that I do remember seeing this in the theater when it came out, and it's one of these movies where I felt like my fellow moviegoers were not responding to it, and yet now it's considered the greatest movie of
Did
the
you
first
say some
decade
people
of
got up and walked out?
everyone got up and walked out except for my sister and myself. We stuck it through the end, and I think what happened is that I maybe they just couldn't handle it. I don't know what it was. It's one of the. I mean, the only other movie I was in where I saw people getting up and out, walking up and leaving was Punch Drunk Love. That was another one where people were getting angry about the. But yeah,
What did your sister say about it?
I don't remember, but I remember her reaction when everyone said, "Okay, Coco," and like she had like this eye roll, like what was that? Like
Yeah.
what was that? Like, because, but I think that's the whole point. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's Lynch. You either like Lynch or you don't like Lynch. But the point, but oddly enough, though, unlike a lot of his other movies, which tend to get panned by critics, the critics embrace this movie, and I think critics have considered this now the greatest movie made in the aughts, the first decade of the 21st century. They consider it the greatest movie of that decade. So, I mean, I don't know. It's
I
weird. It's
did
like his career
want-
came full circle. Yeah.
I did want, and I'm glad that Deleted decided to do these movies in the order that he did. I did feel that although Eraserhead was probably the most trippy, it established tropes of David Lynch, some of which we then subsequently saw in Elephant Man. Elephant Man is probably one of the most straightforward and easily to understand. It is the most grounded in a real story, in real,
Yes.
history. We also looked at Dune. We saw again some of those tropes. Now we're getting out of the imagery tropes, and we're getting into thematic tropes. I did a lot of correlating with Laura Palmer and Diane Selwyn, abuse and sexuality and so forth. And the whole dream logic, dream sequence, dream setting, which is going to become even more prevalent in future stories that we're going to look at, but they are even more complex, and I have not done the thought and study and notes that I have on this one. I think it gets more difficult from here, but I do think this is a great foundation. I think there are elements in this movie that are going to help us tremendously with Inland Empire and the other one.
The other one.
What's the other movie? Lost Highway.
Oh yeah.
Lost Highway. Is that next week?
Deleted?
Okay. Yeah.
It's up to you. I don't want
Because-
to force. Yeah. Okay,
No.
yeah.
Well.
Okay.
Well, Boomer, you've brought up Lost Highway on a number of occasions.
I feel like that is my Lynch
Um,
movie out of all of them. I might
Yeah.
get into that next week. I mean, I'm
So
not
what
gonna
I
say
just heard
yeah.
is he is the subject matter expert, and so he's going to do the deep dive.
I ain't doing no deep dive, but I'll do my best to bring up points that other people have made about it, which I find interesting.
Because
you think I understand what any of this stuff means? I'm like, oh, that's weird. The guy, the weird guy, pale. That's death. That's death, isn't it? Yeah, I figured it out. And I might not be wrong.
Wrong. No.
Yes.
He definitely, to paraphrase another movie, has something to do with death.
Okay. Yeah. I'll get into that next week. I have some thoughts on that. Yeah. Because every time I see that character in Lost Highway, I keep thinking that's death. That I don't even think like it's something analogous. Like, no, that's death. And I don't know why that always pops in my head when I see him. But I'll get into that.
You saw what I did there, though, right?
What? Let me see.
Okay. I said he has something to do with death.
Okay.
Who was another character that had something to do with death?
Oh.
All right. Now, in Assault on Precinct 13, that's said about the Napoleon Wilson character. That man has something to do with death. The actor who played Napoleon Wilson is an interracial head. 6 degrees of separation, folks. Thank you and good night.
I need to watch Assault on Precinct. I saw it once. I really liked it, but I should rewatch that sometime. That's an early John Carpenter. Yeah. Yeah,
it's kind of a modern day Western. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
No, I liked it a lot when I saw it.
And the little Disney kid gets it worse than any of them.
Yeah, that was pretty harsh. Yeah, he's like
we're not effing around.
It's like a character from a 1970s Disney movie, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
Oh, Kim Richards is safe. She'll be fine.
No one is safe in that movie.
No.
That's a good little action picture, actually. Yeah. I should rewatch it sometime. But yeah, I'll do my best to bring some stuff on Mulholland Drive next week. All right, sounds like a plan.
You mean Lost Highway?
That's what I said. Lost Highway, because
you said Mulholland Drive.
Well, whatever. No. Here's another thing I want to say. It's like the same way. Like, I remember when the critics were attacking praising Mulholland Drive, and they attacked Lost Highway. And I'm like, it's like the same movie. Why do they hate one and love the other? I didn't quite get it. So, yeah. I mean, they have the same weird factor. That's what I wanted to say. So I don't know. I'll get into it next week. I might bring up some of those reviews. Yeah, because they were not kind when that movie came out. I love Robert Loggia.
Mr. Eddie. Yeah.
Yes. And I love the music. I have the soundtrack. I know that soundtrack like the back of my hand, that Mr. Eddie's theme. But then of course you have the Marilyn Manson music and the Nine Inch Nails music in there. It's just it's trippy. I'll get into it. Yeah.
I can't get This Magic Moment out of my head when they play that.
Yep. It really sticks in your head. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. We both had senior moments during the show.
I have senior moments all the time now. That's why I picked my name. Okay. Anyway. All right, cool. So yeah, that'll be next week. We'll do the rewatch of Lost Highway, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
And in about 15 minutes, Netter and I will be over on our respective channels for Blake 7.
Yep. And if y'all want a little bit of a treat, you can go over to Maria T. and Telly's channel, and there is a little segment called Airport Madness and Lasagna. Ma visits Francesca.
Ooh.
And see if you recognize any of the voices that are there.
Okay. I guess they're going to be no voices.
There's cows.
Oh.
A mail wrong turn somewhere. There's cows.
We got cows.
Could one of those voices be a certain person's whose name begins with an N? I'm just curious.
Possibly. But when you go over there, make sure you do give her a thumbs up.
I got
so that she knows you were there. And even drop a comment.
Cool. All right.
Okay. My turn? Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right. Earlier tonight, the Mystery Movie Night podcast, Jurassic World Rebirth. Check
Oh,
out mine and corner and Wilkie's Movies and Music Spots on that film. Also, Action Theater returning to its regular day and time, Thursday at 4:30. Bond month continues with Timothy Dalton and License to Kill. Later on that night, of course, Coming Attractions, which will be at 11:30 or right after Thursday Things, whichever comes first. And you'll get to find out what I am doing next week, including, and we're going to get rather controversial this week over at Western Cinema Presents. We're going to watch Rust.
oh wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, and I kind of look at this as the culmination of my first 3 years here on YouTube, because the shooting that happened on the set of Rust was in the news kind of at the time I started doing live streams, back when I did my first show, Saturday Serial. We were discussing that case. So I am looking at that show as the end of the first act of my being on YouTube. So yeah, and if anybody decides, hey, I don't want to watch the show, I get it. But Bill and I, us, we're very honest, and if we like the movie, we'll say why, and if we don't, we're not going to hold back. So it's a first watch for both of us. So you're going to be getting our honest opinion, and we will review the movie afterwards. So join us there, simulcasting on my channel and on Bill's, Sunday at 4 p.m.
Cool.
Yeah. And of course, join us here next
funny,
week.
I didn't even know the movie got made.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of people didn't.
Yeah. But of course, join us right back here, same bat time, same bat channel, as we watch Lost Highway. And that's Bill Pullman,
Yep.
Patricia Arquette, Balthazar
in it.
Getty, Rosia Blake, Richard Pryor.
Richard
shows
Pryor.
up.
Yes.
I'm forgetting a bunch of people, but yeah, Gary Busey.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where everybody is somebody, and we'll be pointing them out throughout the film. So, and not very many of David Lynch's stock actors in that one either. It's a lot of
That's true.
kind of newbies. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that. There's no Kyle MacLachlan.
No.
No Cheryl Lee. Yeah, I mean, maybe he was. Yeah,
No,
no,
Cheryl
I mean,
Lee. I don't remember Jack Nance being in it.
No.
And he was in all of his movies up to a point.
I
And
don't. Yeah.
so I think that kind of adds to the otherworldly nature of that film, because even for his movies, you don't have the things to normally hold on to.
That's true.
We'll be fine. Jack Nance is here. No, oh damn. Hey, yeah, we're not fine. But we'll get to that, as it was Richard Pryor's last movie. Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Rather interesting one to go out on. Yeah. All right. So, Netter, would you like to take us out with your final words?
Of course, y'all know we love you. You are not just our friends. You are our family. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate the many ways that you support us on our channels. You guys are Osmo. said I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. I do this for you. As far as I know, we all do this for you because we want you to be entertained and we want you to keep coming back. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our family. If you stay right here, you will be redirected to Blake 7. And until next time, good night and God bless.
Cool.
And as I always say at the end of every show, thank you all once again for being here. Thank you to everyone who is following along on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. Thank you to everyone who is in the live chat. Please hit the like, share out the stream. If you are new to any of our channels, please subscribe because as Orville Nation always says, we grow together. So from HQ, the corner of Sparkwood and 21, and all points north, south, east, west, and beyond. Good night. Take care. Stay strong. Be safe and healthy. Be careful on driving down Mulholland Drive. That turn is a Lulu. Because this is how we win.